Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Ulver/Sunn record, Terrestrials. Terrestrials is the new collaborative project from two huge names from the darker side of music. Drone metal and doom metal titans Sunn, they've been coming out with some of the boldest, heaviest, and most uncompromising records in this genre since the early 2000s. And considering they started out as an Earth tribute band, I think over time they've really come together with their own unique take on this style of music through records like Black One, Monoliths and Dimensions, and Alter. And on this record, Sunn is coming together with Ulver, one of the most diverse bands that Norway has to offer, whose lineup over the years is just as sporadic as their sound. Their discography is filled with songs that fit snugly into black metal, dark ambient, electronic music and trip hop, folk music, chamber music, dark jazz. And after every stylistic turn Ulver has taken over the years, they've put out at least one or two records that seems to have been a big hit with the band's fan base and the metal world at large. But my personal favorites from the band's discography are their first three records, all of which are black metal classics, in my opinion. And I guess in 2008, Ulver linked up with Sunn in Norway in Ulver's studio while Sunn was in the country for a live gig. And while getting together so spontaneously to just some sort of improvised pieces sounds really awesome, I was kind of apprehensive about this album when I went into it after reading the backstory of it. Because on the one hand, if this music was really some of Sunn's and Ulver's best, wouldn't the LP be longer? It really only stands at 30 minutes, and wouldn't there be more tracks? Wouldn't they have put this thing out earlier, considering it was recorded in 2008? I was sort of afraid that this record wouldn't be anything more than just a fan favorite or a collector's item versus a pinnacle in either band's discography. But on the other hand, the last major collaborative LP that Sunn came out with, Alter with Boris, is one of their best albums, one of Boris's best albums too. So there is reason to believe that putting Sunn together with a group that's just as creative and interesting, if not more, will just create amazing results no matter how long the record is, no matter how many tracks are on it. And while I wasn't disappointed in this thing, I did end up sort of on the fence with Terrestrials on the whole. I ended up wanting more length out of this thing. I ended up wanting some of the tracks here to just be a little bit more climactic, but still, I think Sunn and Ulver came together and made something that was sort of unique, something that they wouldn't have done separately, which is really one of the best things you can hope for when going into a collaboration between two really established artists. So if you are even a casual fan of either band here, I do think Terrestrials is at least worth checking out just for the explorational aspect. There are moments on this LP where foundationally and conceptually it feels like a Sunn song, but Ulver comes through and lightens up the drones a little bit, making the sounds more ethereal, harmonious, and delicate, like on the opener here, Let There Be Light. This song is not really the massive, overpowering wall of sound you typically expect from a Sunn album, but I still thought the track had its moments and really eased me in to the record. There are all these high-pitched tones swelling in and out of the mix, as well as these tremolo tones. And underneath this, horns and strings are slowly introducing themselves into the mix, and all of the instrumentation just slowly grows and fills in the gaps that they're creating until the song just becomes massive, vast. All of this sort of becomes a foundation for this wandering, fluttering trumpet, bringing the song kind of a jazzy flavor. And that's fine. It's not bad. It doesn't ruin the track. When I think the song really gets a little underwhelming is toward the finish line when drums are introduced, and they're so bodiless. There are these heavy guitars playing against them too, and you know, while I appreciate the idea of coming together with an explosive finish, the payoff is really hardly there. On the flip side, there are moments on this LP where it feels like I'm listening to an Ulver song, which Sunn is bringing in some really meaty, heavy elements. Like the closing track on here, Eternal Return, probably my favorite track on this entire LP. I love the icy vibraphone on this track, if that is vibraphone that I'm hearing. I'm loving the strings, the ethereal guitars. This track is just so wide and expansive and panoramic. It's like standing on top of a mountain and just looking down and out on to everything that just stands before you and below you. And the chords on this track just have a really, really strong jazz influence to them, and the pace that they're played at sort of reminds me of and the transition this track makes from the first half to the second half is stellar. String sections pop in and they're skipping very lightly against the tempo that the band has set for the track. There's some heavy piano chords, some cold synthesizers, and Christopher Riggs' vocals come in and sound so smooth, yet a little unnerving. After hearing this track and hearing this side of the Sunn Ulver spectrum, Eternal Return is really the place that I think this record could have explored further. Explored for more tracks, or at least for more time. There is the song Western Horn on this LP as well, which is sort of a meaty middle ground between that Ulver sound and that Sunn sound. It's not bad, but it's not really a stunner either. It's heavy, but not that heavy. It's got a lot of layers of instruments, but I wouldn't call this track beautiful or anything like that. This is really one of the darker, more disturbing tracks on this entire LP. The guitars are so grotesque. There are all these mangled, distorted tones calling out throughout the song too. There's some really cold synthesizers. There are some really cold keyboards as well, and a really odd whistling sound that feels like a mix between the baby from Eraserhead screaming and a tea kettle going off. And this sound weaves in and out in a really weird way and is most apparent right at the finish of the song. I like this LP. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was amazing. It's got its moments. I don't feel like it pushes the fringes too hard for either artist or the genres that these songs play in, but I still do find Terrestrials appealing for the sort of improvisational, lightning in a bottle appeal that comes with Sunn and Ulver deciding to collaborate so suddenly. The production is great, it's well balanced, it's colorful, the music is big, it's moody, it's slow, it's monolithic. It does what it's gotta do. I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this thing. Transition, if you've given this new Sunn Ulver collaboration a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? And what do you think I should, review next? Anthony Fantano, Sunn and Ulver, Terrestrials, forever.